the speaker for tonight first. So, Mr. Anindya is currently working in the TAS department of the Tata Group, that is the Tata Administrative Services. He has graduated with his MBA in 2023, just recently from IIM Calcutta. He has, previous to that, he has completed his political science honors with sociology as his minor from Ashoka University. And he has also been very active in the field of sports. He is a state level swimmer and also a national level badminton player. So, thank you, sir, for being a part of this episode.
Thank you for
And
having
we
me.
are absolutely delighted to have you.
Thanks for the invitation.
Okay, great. So, Abhi,
Thank you
please
so much,
start
sir.
with the first question.
Yes. So, sir, let's begin with a brief description about your life at Ashoka University. Like you have studied liberal arts, if I'm right. And at Shaheed Bhagat Singh College, we have a lot of art student who think it's either civil services or end of everything. How do you counter this mindset within them?
Sure, fine. I'll start about the first part of the question first. So, Ashoka University is a liberal arts college, but its mode of teaching is liberal in that I can change my major even though even my second year if I have a 3 year degree. So you can change majors, you can mix up minors. Like I could be a pol science major with a physics minor. So they don't take that they don't take your schooling into consideration. So you can have a science degree as well, even if you've done arts in your schooling. So that part of it is liberal, but the degree itself is not a liberal arts degree per se. They hand out majors in a particular sphere, like it's a BA honors degree or a BSc honors degree. So the second part of your question, wait, arts majors, it's UPSC or it's academics. At the end of everything, ka to I don't know. Most of the people I know were either into academics or were UPSC. So I mean, it's the way, if you look at it from an MBA lens, the way the MBA exam, the CAT is designed is DILR, VRC, and Quant. DILR and Quant are effectively a forte for engineering and science students, right? Which is why arts majors are usually not seen as potential MBA, potential MBA students, because there's a lack of awareness. Most people who are from an arts background have not explored the business world. They have not explored the possibility of having an MBA. And the other factor is that culture hai UPSC ka in India. Arts karo, then UPSC karo. So these two factors come into play. However, I never felt as a BA student that I was at a severe disadvantage as such during my MBA either. Because yes, there are some subjects which would be like quote unquote engineer friendly, but an arts major can catch up. Like if you have, say, a stats course, which is compulsory for us. So obviously an engineer is going to do better. A BBA, BCom student is going to do better than me in that. But it's not impossible, right? It's doable. So there is that. And as for the whole culture of there is this stigma around MBA ki arts walo ka nahi hoga. So we get diversity points for it. Most of the colleges give us diversity marks if you have a academic diversity in your application. If you have any arts degree, I think arts, law, if you're a doctor, any degree apart from BSc and BTech, you get diversity marks. So the cutoff for you is a little lower. That's not very significant, but it is, even if it's a 0.2 percentile difference, it's a huge difference. At above 99, it gets huge. The score difference gets huge. So I think that covers your question roughly.
The next question, going through your MBA profile and going through everything that you have mentioned in your LinkedIn account as well, which is first off a gold mine for students, right? Because you have explained everything in so much elaboration that you can just keep on reading and reading and you get so much insights about everything. So you've also mentioned, a prominent part of it, that you're an athlete, right? And you have done swimming at a state level and you have played badminton at a national level. So my question to you is, how has sports changed your perspective about everything? You have been pursuing sports long before your MBA or your bachelor's degree. You have been pursuing sports from your school days, and then you have slowly transitioned into doing humanities in your undergraduate, followed by a management degree, and now you're working in this huge group, right, which has multiple companies. And as an administrative officer, you go on and explore multiple different companies. It is a general management role, right? So how has
Yeah.
sports affected every part of the journey? The factor of competitiveness and the factor of discipline that comes with sports. So would you like to please explain us and elaborate us?
Sports, so swimming, I left. You mentioned that I was a state level swimmer, but I left swimming a long time back. I think it was in eighth grade, eighth or ninth grade that I left it, and I did it because I wanted to choose badminton, and I had like there's only 24 hours within a day, and I had to pass my school exams as well. So I chose badminton over that. As for looking at it through a sports lens, how has sports impacted? I wouldn't have left sports if I could. Like if I could stick with it, I would have stuck to it. But due to an injury, I had to retire early. Otherwise, there's no chance that I would have given CAD, gone for an MBA, gone to corporate. There's no chance. But ab kismat thi aisi. But as for sports, what I did realize once I stopped playing was when I was prepping for CAT, and CAT also happened very randomly. My roommate in Ashoka was gonna give CAT, and he told me about what IIMs are, what a MBA is, what you do after an MBA. So wahan se I learned about it, and then I was like, okay, this is something I can do. Because after I retired from badminton, I was at a loss. I didn't know what to do because I'll be honest with you, school में मैंने पढ़ाई की नहीं थी उतनी. ठीक है, UG maybe I didn't study a lot, so I didn't see a lot of options for myself. So I'd applied to a few master's courses abroad, but they were mostly courses that wouldn't really give me a placement as such. So then when MBA happened, what I did realize was that I had a lot of free time. Like when I left badminton, I think I was playing 12 to 14 hours a day. So there were 12 new hours in my day. So I knew I can study now. So as for why, what sports changed for me was that uh, I don't enjoy studying, right? I'm not a huge fan of studying, but then again, what happens is since I have the time now, and since I think your point about discipline was correct. Uh, it's far easier than physical labor to me at least. So it's more boring, but I can still do it. So the discipline factor is there. The second factor is uh, post a sports career, a corporate career. When you look at interviews, like corporate interviews, you look at MBA admission interviews. Those interviews became easy for me because I had a lot of content to talk about. So talking about my life, my experiences, that would usually take up the bulk of an interview. And most people don't come from a sporting background, especially in MBA colleges. They don't come from a very, at least at a very higher level. They most people haven't. They've mostly been focused on academics. It's mostly a group of people from top due colleges and IITs. So sports hasn't been a primary area for them. It hasn't been a goal for them. So I had a lot to talk about. So interviews were comparatively, I would say, comparatively easy for me. So I think that was an addition that sports gave.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir. Sounds great. Sir, I think you mentioned in one of the other YouTube videos that you have done, right, that due to an injury you had to step away from badminton, and that later
Mhm.
transitioned on to this journey that you have had. Great, sir. Abhi, next question, please.
Yes, sir, we have seen that you have done a lot of internships. Like you have gold mine of description within. So what's the secret to getting good internships, and how you have managed all those alongside within the studies, like how you have done
Right.
this?
So most of the internship that I did were during my MBA period. So I mean, for me it was easy because I had the tag, I had the MBA college tag, right? So if I secured most of my internship through either LinkedIn or I don't know, Internshala, then there were a couple of other portals. So given that my CV had a college tag on it, that helped me sail through. Like I would get to the interview stage at least. So that was one thing. The second thing was during an MBA, you do have time for like live projects and internships. And I mean, I know uh, there's a whole image ki B school jaake their life is over. It's all about academics. That's not really the case. Like if you want to be a college ranker, if you want to have great marks, then yes, then you have to contribute a lot of time. But if that is not your priority, which is, I mean, for most people it isn't. Like unless people are aiming either for like the top finance or top consulting companies and they really need to keep a good grade. For most of the rest, like the rest of the crowd, they have time on their hands for internships as long as they are remote, because we have to be on campus full time. So since I had that, and I was good with interviews, and apart from that, we learned how to make our CV really well. So like that's something that is taught in a B school. In most B schools, they teach you how to what's the right format, how to write your points. So after all of that, I think that gave me an edge. Plus, I think there was also the fact that I came from a comparatively diverse background. So these things played well for me. And the other thing was most of my internships are marketing, right? And my profile matches the field of marketing. So I mean, I don't think you'll be able to find a finance internship in my CV. I mean, after a bachelor's in pol science, it's uh, I mean, the company डूब जाएगी अगर मैं finance internship में चला गया तो इसलिए that is there, but it was related to the things I'd already done, so it just kept building, and that's how it went. My CV became bigger, and it became easier to get internships. So it's a process.
So you had that I am tag, but what if someone is from tier 2 or tier 3 college? So what should
Right.
they approach? Like before that, you were in Ashoka University, and from that
Mm-hmm.
you went to like I am Calcutta. So what to do?
ए यार ऐसे
What
अशोक का
do
टीयर टू नहीं है यार, ऐसे बेइज्जती मत कर यार, ठीक ठाक ही है. It's not that bad. But during my Ashoka time, I was fully focused on sports, right? So internships and these things, like I didn't really care about those things. And CV, these were all foreign concepts to me. But when I was time, में मिल जाता है, ऐसा नहीं. We also had an internship cell. So सिर्फ DU का नहीं होता. But right, so for somebody who is from a tier 2 college, and let's say that they don't have that tag per se, like the tag of say Shaheed, Bhagat Singh or Stephens or an LSR. So what they can do is there's two things to do. Depends on which field you're targeting, right? So if you're targeting fin and consult, then you really have to focus on your marks. Your marks have to be good. Your 10th, 12th, and your UG scores have to be good. Then if you're focusing on other fields where academics isn't a main area of concern for hiring, you need to focus on getting in positions of responsibility in your college, getting in good, like you, one of the easiest ways to get good CV points is case competitions, right? So any company based case competition, like there's HUL Line, there's a whole bunch of companies that have case competitions. It's there on Unstop. So I think D2C को Unstop बना दिया ना, right? So they have all those case comps listed down. So there's hundreds every year. So even if you manage to get a position in even in like a finalist, if you're able to get those positions in at least 5 to 10 case comps in a year, that's more than enough to upgrade your CV massively, because you get a brand name on your CV, you get a position on your CV, and it's a proof of work of sorts, because case competitions are usually built around problems that companies are currently facing, right? So that always gives your CV an edge. POR is there. Okay, I understand from what I have heard in DU colleges is ki POR, the way it works for you guys is ki the third year or the final year person is usually the president, vice president, like the top tier right, and uske niche it's like year based, right? So even if you don't have a top, like let's say you're in your first year or your second year and you don't have a great looking POR, it all depends on how you define the work you've done. One of the biggest errors that I've seen in most UG CVs is that people tend to be very descriptive with what they did, right? Whereas you should be instead of doing that, you should be showing the impact of your work. So that is a huge difference that comes in between UG CVs and MBA CVs. So if a UG person knew how to frame it, like whatever they've done, if they knew how to frame it well, like I'll give you an example. Like I've seen people who've written sentences like I worked in this role, and you're not supposed to describe your experience, you're supposed to describe the impact you had while you were there. So even in PORs, quantifying your CV, making sure that there are numbers on the CV, making sure that it's visible, the way you frame it, the language of it. So all of these things matter a lot, and these hygiene factors can upgrade your CV to an extent. Keep your college tag will not matter after that point. And it's also about mass applying, right? Some people apply for 5 internships, and internships response nahi aaya, they give up. At the UG level, where you don't have a brand or a tag, you'll have to mass apply. Like you have to go through the roles you like, go through LinkedIn, go through Internshala, go through Indeed, whatever portals are there, uske through, and then again, I've never been a person who's been a huge fan of cold emailing, but that also works out for a lot of people. If you have a template set, and if you're emailing 2,000 people or 1,000 people, you're bound to get at least 30 to 40 responses. So it's all about mass applying. So that's the main force for anyone who's in a tier 2 college.
Okay, sir. So you have mentioned about the placement procedure and internships and placements, about how is it different at IIMs and at different colleges, right? From the past two answers. So naturally, my question would be, Tell us some insights regarding the placement procedures at these top fancy IIMs. How is it different from other institutions? Like, for example, if I talk about our college or other colleges at large, what happens is that there is usually an aptitude test just before the group discussion round and then followed by an interview round. They are usually divided between technical rounds and HR rounds. So how is it different at top IIMs? Is your pedigree that is usually associated with cracking CAT with a good percentile, is that usually enough to sail through such aptitude test, or do we still have to go through that procedure? Can you just explain that sort in brief?
Depends on the company. So, I mean, the process is similar to yours. In fact, like the hiring process, usually there's a the some companies have an assessment, some don't. Some directly shortlist from the CV pool, and they'll give you a GD slot. GD clear karo, interview karo. So most marketing and Genman companies have this. They'll have a GD and then they'll have an interview. Consulting, mein there's consulting and finance, mein they tend to have something which is called as buddy calls. So they'll assign, if you have been shortlisted, you'll be assigned a buddy from the company who'll uh, evaluate your. So basically, they do case solving over call, over video call or over phone call, and they evaluate your performance there, and then you get shortlisted for an interview. So and at the end of the day, the placements usually last 3 to 4 days. We have like day 0, day 1, day 2, day 3, and usme placement ho jata. I think that's the major difference. Uh, where in UG colleges and tier 2 colleges have like a rolling system where it goes on for months, whereas for top IIMs it's instant, like it's within 1 week. So that's the major difference. As for rounds, technical round, HR round, alag alag usually nahi hota hai. Depends on the company again. So for example, many marketing companies tend to have an assessment. They have either a aptitude test or a personality test. They have something of that sort. Then they tend to have a video interview at times. I think many of the companies that go to DU colleges also have this, where you'll get a question flashing on your screen. Wait, am I audible?
It cut just before you said question flashing on your screen.
Okay. So yeah, right. So some video interview वाला process भी कुछ companies का रहता है. They'll have a GD, they'll have a video interview, then they'll have a final interview. So, but max 3 rounds is the total. Like if you include GD as a round, so if you have CV shortlisting, that's your first round. If you clear that, then you'll have a GD, then you'll have an interview. So 3 to 4 rounds is usually the maximum. Some companies have more rounds. Like I mean, I can name companies. Amazon has a longer process. I think they're 5 rounds. TAS had 5 rounds. TAS had five rounds. So it's a longer process. So it depends on the company.
Okay, so usually the companies do have something similar of that sort, but it really depends upon the domain, right? So you have mentioned 5 rounds. So what rounds can we expect apart from the usual GD round and the interview round? What else do companies assign to students?
So GD round, uske alawa bhai assessment, ya to they'll have a personal like an aptitude test, or they'll give you a quiz sort of thing where it's related to the domain you're applying for, or they can have buddy calls, in which is popular, like which is the case in most management consulting firms where they assign a buddy, they have buddy calls. Apart from that, they can give you a case to solve. Like this also happens with a lot of companies. They'll give you a problem to solve. They expect like a 3 slide of PPT from you, and then they shortlist based on your CV and that PPT. So these are the common processes.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So basically, the thing to understand over here is that whichever company that you're shortlisting for, you have to already be ready with the sort of things that they can expect, right? If you're applying to a consulting company, then you can expect that since consulting is majorly solving case projects, then you have to be familiar with case studies. And since marketing is a lot
Yeah.
about communicating effectively.
Every sector has its own defined prep, and I
Mhm.
think I've posted a lot of prep material also on LinkedIn. But every sector has its own defined prep. For consulting, there's case prep. For marketing, it's GD prep, which is STP and 4P. Then operations ka there's another handbook. Like the college and the clubs in the college usually have handbooks for us, so that is there. And plus across other colleges, there's like common drives. You can access a lot of material. If at least in the top B schools, a lot of material is provided to prep. Plus, we have like everyone forms prep groups. So depend on the sector you're targeting. And usually people go for 2 sectors because prepping for more than 2 sectors, it takes up too much time. So they the most common combo I think is consulting and marketing. That's the usual combo like people go for. कि consulting अगर हो गया day 1 में तो ठीक है, नहीं हुआ तो फिर day 2 में marketing कर लेंगे. So that is one combo that people go for. And नहीं तो then there's fin plus consult people कि day 0 में fin हो गया तो ठीक है, नहीं तो consult चले जाएंगे. So these are the usual categories.
Okay, okay. naturally, since you mentioned that there are 5 rounds through a TAS interview procedure, right? So sounds very complex, sort of like you have to actually be ready for every single round. So with that, my question would be, tell us about your role at TAS, right? Because a lot of the times, people or in general masses, they are very comfortable with what they can expect for marketing roles or consulting roles, because these are very glamorized in the way that they are very popular amongst the masses. But general management roles are usually not very famous, in the sense like they are glamorous in their own way, but they're not very famous, as in they're not very picture perfect sort of. So can you just
Yeah.
explain and go through your role at TAS?
See, one of the main reasons why Genman roles aren't well known is because they hire exclusively from B schools. They like consulting, fin, marketing, all of these also hire from UG colleges. So their Genman roles are usually MBA specific, and many of them hire very selectively. They'll go only to ABC or they'll go to only Blackie. So they have those kind of criterions around them, which is why जनता को नहीं पता होता है कि क्या हो रहा है. So within the MBA circuit, everyone will know TAS, but I doubt that. I think most UG students wouldn't know about it, right? So that's the thing. And as for my role, so how TAS works is Tata Administrative Services in itself is not a company. Like their job is just to source TAS officers. Like recruitment is their primary job. What happens next is first there's a long induction process. We have a Bharat Darshan. So the entire program has been modeled after the IAS model, right? So it's like a IAS system within the Tata ecosystem. So how it works is in our first year, that's a training probationary period. How it works is we get 3 business stints of in 3 different companies of 3 months each, and then we have 1 2 month community stint, which is under any Tata Group NGO. So it's either under Tata Steel Foundation or any of the NGOs within Tata Trusts. So that's how it works, and that's a 2 month stint. The rest are 3 month, three into three, and then there's 1 2 month. How it works is our profiles and our choices are matched to the projects that companies come up with. So all the companies send their 3 month projects to the task office, and then we are assigned, or based on the company's choice, based on our choices. So what they ask us is the top 3 domains we want to work in, and the top 3 companies that we want to work in. So they try to make sure कि at least if not company then domain match हो जाए, या domain match नहीं हो पा रहा है उतना तो company match हो जाए. So that's what they do. They match the profiles and they match our choices with the available projects. So these are 3 month projects, and you could call it's almost like an internship type system, because you're there just for 3 months. But the exposure is great. Like you get to meet all the C-suite officers of all the companies you go to. You get to meet even during our induction, we met, I think, the majority of Tata company CEOs, and so the exposure is great. It's an accelerated leadership program, so it is like the growth is pretty fast. So that is there. And as for my role, my first stint was in TCS in CSR, because sustainability had been one of my domains. So CSR, TCS, that happened, and then my second stint right now is customer experience in Air India, where I am right now. So it depends on our choices. Now, let's say ki I'm a marketing person. So if I want to, I can shape my career in a way where I'm focused mostly on brand management and marketing, but I have the flexibility to change my domain when I want. That's the flexibility that TAS offers. For like, if today I feel like no, I want a strategy role, I want to do strategy, I can try to get a strategy role in my third stint, and then subsequently in our final placement, what happens is after our first year of training, we are given we have the choice to apply to all the companies that have open roles, and then people usually get something close to what they want or exactly what they want. And if you don't like let's say you spend a year or 2 years there and you feel like you want to change your domain or you want to change your company, so you can do that. That's the flexibility TAS offers. So if let's say in my final placement I chose Air India in customer experience, after 2 years I felt like I want to do something new, so I could move to any other company, TCPL or Titan, in a strategy role. So again, depends on the available roles. It is subject to availability. It's not just up to us, but it is still flexible. So that's the good part of it.
Okay, sir. So, all in all, it is, as you mentioned, I think this was a very good comparison where you compared IAS with the administrative services of Tata, right? So you have the flexibility to choose between all these different domains at the end of your stint, as you mentioned, at the training period, right? Okay, so my next question to you would be, as you mentioned, that you have been working in the customer specialization, right? Um,
Customer experience, CX.
Customer experience at Air India headquarters, right here in Gurugram. So, how would you
Yeah.
like to describe your experience within Air India? As we all know, I think most of us have sat in Air India flights before, right? So, can you explain what goes on behind the scenes? Because a lot of the general public just see the pilot and the cabin crew, and that's about it.
Right. So my first stint was also in Gurgaon. TCS was also in Gurgaon. I've been lucky enough to get Gurgaon again. Alcohol is cheap here, which is always a plus. But the thing is, so in Air India, since we're going under a rebranding and a merger, so Air India has been merged with Vistara. Air India Express has been merged with Air Asia. So it's just going to be Air India Express and Air India now. So it's a very hectic phase, and they're rebranding. They've launched a new logo. They're launching new fleets. They're launching new uniform designs. So it's all launch, 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 launch. So it's a very, very hectic phase for us right now because we have a very sharp deadline. So getting all the vendors together, making sure all the designs are ready, and then making sure that we. So as part of the CX team, one of my major deliverables is to manage the implementation of the rebranding across all the airports where Air India is visible. So that includes all brand assets, all brand assets, making sure that they're there on at the airport on time. Everything, the designing is done on time. So given our steep deadlines, it's become a little hectic, but still very far away from the consulting या finance वाला life. So it's है ना time podcast करने का ये so that is there. But I'm really liking the work. The team is great, and post rebranding and after Tata acquired Air India, it is set to change. They are investing very, very heavily, both in terms of money and in terms of time, in making Air India much more professional and making the service much better. So I think people should be able to see the effects by quarter 1 or quarter 2 next year.
Okay, amazing, amazing. Actually, we are sort of glad that you have the time to do this interview with us. And we wish you all the best, and we wish the Tata Air India in the entire team all the very best. As you mentioned that you are all very working very hard in terms of investment, human capital, and the financial capital as well. Okay, so there is placement season going on at our college at this point, right? So I would like to naturally ask you that. What tips would you like to give to third year students who are currently sitting for placements or plan to sit on placements for the future? They are going to go through a DD round, they're going to go through a personal interview round, and the students are usually going to be from your bachelor's of commerce side of the department, right? So, what advice
Okay.
would you give or
What's
tips
your
from your college?
primary BCom is your biggest batch, क्या?
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of depends again placement? What is your target sector? उसके बारे में बताते हैं. So we can go sector by sector if you want.
Yeah, okay, sure. I think that would work. So primarily, we have a lot of auditing firms coming, like KPMG and PwC, where we
It's
talk
big
about
four,
audit
All the
assistants.
big fours.
Yeah.
right? ठीक है. So again, I don't have big four specific prep material, and since I'm not a fin guy as such, see I have the resources, but which I can share with you if you want. But mostly it's about your technical prep, right? Because in these roles, your technical prep needs to be on point. Baki personal prep, your CV prep, that is slightly secondary in nature in this particular sector. So as long as you have a technical prep down, I think, and it's in UG, it's a game of resources. Who has the better notes? Who has the better company prep? So one of the best ways to figure out what they exactly need is to reach out to a senior associate within the firm and to try to and have a conversation with that person on exactly what they need, because many a times they don't just hire for a particular role. ठीक है, audit assistant, like audit वाला role है, it is a static role, everybody knows कि अच्छे इसमें ये आएगा, right? But you don't know what's going on within the firm at that point. उनके पास exactly कौन से projects हैं, so sometimes they are looking for very specific skills, right? So figuring that out, you'll need to have a conversation with either the HR or the HR से तो ideally नहीं करना चाहिए, because at that point unethical हो जाएगा, तो I don't think HR जल्दी करेंगे. But any senior associate within the firm should be able to give you an idea of what the company status and what they're looking for in their new joinees. So that's one way. दूसरा way है कि go through all the resources available for the role. If you I'm guessing you guys give them a handbook or you have a prep repository of some sorts. Eh?
Not particularly. I think that is much more handled by the placement cell of our college. We are the
Right.
career counseling and guidance cell, so it is
तो
sort of an
देते हैं ना, मतलब
extracurricular
कॉलेज
thing.
में कॉलेज वाले तो देते हैं ना.
Yes, they do. They do.
So going through that,
Resources
making
and
sure
stuff.
that everything else is on point, and making sure that your CV is framed really well, because the UG में placecom, I think most UG placecoms are focused on verification, but they don't really care about the quality of what you've written, right? So whereas in MBA they have to keep the quality up to mark, वरना college की बेइज्जती हो जाएगी. So इसलिए they also look at the quality part of it. So since you don't have that kind of a guidance, I guess having sessions with the students on how to frame their CV, giving them mock CVs, samples, they this is wrong, this is right. I think that should be done. So I guess your particular club can do that pretty well. So CV framing sessions,
Yes.
you can get in people who are either part of the firms that recruit from your place, or you can get it done from people who've just done an MBA जिनको याद है कि कैसे करना है. So that can be done.
Okay, great stuff. And lastly, what do you have to say for people who are going to join the consulting side of things? As you mentioned that consulting is also plays a huge role, right, in our college as well and in MBA
Okay.
colleges also. For
Right. So the
consulting.
consulting का ये है कि I think UG से तो they won't hire for front end consulting. They'll hire for a data analyst kind of role or a knowledge associate. These are the common terms that they usually have. So for a data analyst role, the prep is very different. Consulting का prep is slightly different, I think. But for post MBA वाले जो consulting roles, there's a very specific way to go about it. It usually takes a month to prep. And see, the thing is with consulting, you can prep all you want, but what at the end of the day, if your CV is not getting shortlisted, you're not going to get anywhere. And for a CV shortlist, academics is the first hurdle for consulting and finance. And most companies usually have a filter of around 25. So when I say 25, what I mean is UG 10th and 12th मिला के, let's assume 10 10 10 is 30, right? So they want 25. So let's say you have 12th में 92, so that's a 9. So in that sense 25 is the usual base filter. Like उसके नीचे तुमने भाई तुम मोदी थे भाई उसके नीचे, but if your acads are not there, you're not going to get the shortlist. So that's usually the case, and the rest of the CV comes only after the academics. Academics is usually at the top of the CV for most colleges. So consultant fin के लिए तो acads is a must. So I mean, I have to be real with this. If you've scored well, if you've not scored well in 10th and 12th, like if your scores are like 70s may and your total is below 25, so then it's unless you have very relevant and very high quality work experience, and वो भी होना मुश्किल है without the acads. Like getting hired out of UG without good acads is also hard. So it's mostly off limits for people who don't have that academics, those academic scores. So fin and consult both. So that's a problem there. But if you have managed to maintain your academics and everything is on point, then consult prep is a month. Like it's it takes a month solving cases, learning how to solve cases, doing estimates. So there's a lot of resources for it. I think there's a lot of YouTube videos for it. So it's very doable. It's not hard. It's just practice and practice. It's basically like cat in some ways. So you just have to practice it. And 1 month से ज़्यादा लगना नहीं चाहिए. So if you need resources for that, I can share those with you as well, and you can forward it to the rest of your batch. Consulting like for any sector.
Great. Thank you very much. We would definitely take the resources and add them in the description of this video once it's live
Sure.
on our social medias. And okay, so since you have mentioned, CAT, and there is going to be a sizable chunk of our college who are going to not go into the placement side of things, and they're going to actually go into CAT, maybe as freshers or maybe in the future after working for maybe 1.5 2 years. That is something that we have observed, that what people do is they work for 2 years and then after gaining some relevant experience, they go on for their MBAs. So
Right.
for the CAT 2023 aspirants, I don't think there's a lot of time left, but
Right.
maybe you can give them some last minute tips on how to manage. I'm sure you must have written a post on LinkedIn regarding this. I think I've read that while I was researching for this podcast, but you could just elaborate on some points, maybe something else that you would like to let people know.
Regarding cat.
Yeah, regarding the last 5 to 6 days that is left before the final exam day.
Yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of people make a huge deal out of this. कि last 5 6 days, last week. देखो तुमने पढ़ाई नहीं की तो last week में तो कुछ होने नहीं वाला है. तो इसलिए if you have done the work, if you have studied well, if you have studied hard, last week should be the time to relax. Like mocks do and relax, because see mocks ka the main goal is for giving so many mocks is of course doing an analysis of what you've done and ki kya marks and all of that is there, but it is to recreate the exam atmosphere, right? So for you to do that, you have to give a sufficient number of mocks. Usually people do 50 to 60. So once that is, especially in the last month, so that when you're there in the exam hall, you don't feel a lot of stress because you've done this 50 times. So that's the main aim there. And वही last week में तो वही कि mocks दो and try to be as relaxed as possible, especially if you're a jittery person, especially if exams make you nervous. You need to be relaxed. You need to be well slept, well fed, well everything. So वो है. So in fact, one of my closest friends from Calcutta, he was partying लगातार 2 weeks before CAT because he had already prepped उसके पहले, and then he got 99.9. So मतलब, I mean, I'm I don't know if everyone should do that, but at the same time, being relaxed is key.
So that could have been a risky strategy, I think, for most people, right? To party
Yeah,
2 weeks before.
yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for most people,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying
No,
as an example.
that is a sort of a legendary strategy that only a few people can pull off. Okay,
Right.
so for people who are aspiring for CAT 2024, which is
Mhm.
exactly 1 year, for them this is just the beginning of everything, right? So what advice would you have for them as to how should they go on with each sectional, verbal, quants, and DILR? How should they
See,
approach it?
ideally, a year is also a lot of time. Like 6 months is pretty much enough for CAT. But if you're starting prep this early, you have a lot of time on your hands. So the best way to go about it is to, if you can either go for coaching, right? So coaching वाले तो सब sort कर देंगे mostly. But I didn't take coaching. I'm not a huge fan of coaching because like it's a huge crowd. Personal doubt solving takes time. So depends on the kind of person you are. Like honestly, like it's not कि one method is better than the other. It's about whether you learn faster in a class environment or do you learn faster when you're alone. So once you've made that choice, if you're trying to learn alone, what you can do is list out all the topics and try to figure out which ones you're good at, which ones you're bad at. So your job before the actual exam day is to make sure that as many topics as जितने भी topics तुम्हारे लिए bad topics हैं और tough है, try to minimize that number. Try to get comfortable with the topics at hand. And once in the last 2 months ish, like before the actual exam, you should have a good hold on what you're good at, what you're bad at, because what you're bad at you need to leave. You need to focus only on what you're good at. So once you've done that research, I think you're sorted. The problem that most people face is during the exam, like first guy question mein, that is the most common problem. First guy question mein time waste ho gaya. If you have this down in your head ki, okay, this topic i'm I'm bad at this topic, I'm not going to do this topic at all, so you'll immediately leave that question, move on to the next question. So having that clarity on which topics you're strong with and which you're weak with, that is the main aim of the first 3 to 4 months. And then covering, of course, covering the syllabus wo to hai. So but this should be a key factor for any prep, any kind of CAT aspirant.
Okay, so you have mentioned a lot of different points and stuff like that. Would you like to go for some sort of a sectional detail on how to approach verbal section, DILR section, quant section from your own personal experience?
Okay, ठीक है, 2 साल हो गया एग्जाम दिए हुए, but ठीक है.
Yeah, just
Fine.
just a little.
See, the thing with VRC, which VRC was my strong point. The thing with VRC is it can't be like of course giving mocks is always going to help, but the main source to be good at VRC is to have a fast reading speed, and that can only develop with reading. So for that to happen, I don't know. A lot of people preach कि नहीं newspaper articles पढ़ने चाहिए, ये पढ़ना चाहिए. Like it has to be very informational. Doesn't always have to be that. Getting comfortable with the English language should be your main goal for cracking VRC. So you can read novels, you can read fiction, you can read comics if that's what interests you. Just make sure that you read and you try to get your reading speed up. That's it. That should be your main goal in the first half of your prep. Then you can focus on mocks and specific ki, okay, passage ko kaise tackle karna hai, kitni jaldi ho raha hai, and analyzing how fast you are at it. But the first phase of any VRC prep needs to be getting comfortable with the language, especially for the non-passage questions. Okay, for example, I'll give you an example. Hindi mein, if I say काम वाली आ गया है, you instantly know कि ये गलत लिखा है, right? This is wrong. You need that same response in English. Whenever you read a sentence, if you should know it's off. Like, even if you don't know the exact specific कि क्यों ये गलत सुनने में लग रहा है, but सुनने में गलत लग रहा है, for that to happen, you need to read a lot, and there's no hiding away from that. So that's for VRC. VRC के अलावा, if you look at DLR, again, DLR is also a game of identifying your strengths. Now, for me, the questions like A, B, C, D are sitting around the table. वो वाले जो round table वाले questions थे, and then there were so I identified these sets कि okay, these kinds of questions I'm good at. So उसके अलावा do I have enough time to learn the other types of questions? If I do, then I can focus on that, learning, listing down the different types of questions, and then learning each one as much as possible. And then wait 2 months पहले ditch whatever you can't learn, just जिसमें भी you're weak, and make the strong bulletproof. That is the same prep style with DLR. And quant may be similar again. Quant may, given that there's a larger number of topics to cover, some topics are interconnected, some are not. So making sure that you cover the larger groups of topics first, like permutation and combination, then there's probability. ऐसे करके जितने भी larger groups हैं जिसमें से ज़्यादा questions आते हैं, covering that first and trying to make sure that they become your strong points is key. Because if you're really good at say probability, but उसका एक ही question आ रहा है पूरे exam में, so making sure that you cover those topics are not equal. Not all topics are equal. So making sure you cover the larger ones first, then keeping them, keep revising them while you're practicing newer ones, and 2 months before the exam, ditch the ones you have not been able to complete. Like 2 months to 1.5 months tak, if you're not good at a particular topic, you should leave it, because you'll be wasting a lot of time. You can make a stronger. So at the end of the day, cat me, you're not there to solve the entire paper, right? You have 40 minutes per section. And for a 99 percentile plus, I think in quant you need 24. I think the system has changed a little. I think now it's 22 questions, but in my attempt in 2020, it was 24 questions in the quant section. 15 Getting 24 questions right in 40 minutes is a very hard task, which is, it's impossible for most people. But getting 12 to 15 questions right is not that hard. होता क्या है कि people end up wasting time in different questions. एक दो में अटक गए, ये हो गया, वो हो गया. But if you have that clarity कि मुझे इस topic का करना ही नहीं, right? So then it's very easy. 12 to 15 questions in a 40-minute time span is very easy. You have 3 minutes plus per question. So काफी time है. So if you approach the paper that way, then, and again, it depends on your prep, depends on your strengths. अब किसी का बहुत strong है quant, so then maybe they'll be good for like 18-19 questions, right? So it's about your prep and your analysis of where you are. So that is the main way to prep.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. I think we have majorly covered all the questions from our question bank. I do have some questions to ask you from the audience side of the picture. So from the general public, who would be watching this podcast and who would be taking learnings from you. Um, so my first question is, since we all know that there is no shying away from the fact that compensation plays a key role for post MBA, job profiles, and people do join MBA, a lot of them at least, for this very particular reason. Could you tell us about if somebody is joining, their MBA for, strictly compensation reasons, which is not a very good approach. We all know that, but for example, if that is their intention.
approach.
Okay, so what should they target? What should they have in their mind to be able to get that particular compensation that they're looking for after they have graduated?
Right. So I might get a lot of hate from a lot of people for saying this, but there are roughly 10 colleges, especially if you already have a tier 1 college in your CV. Like if you are from a top DU college or a top IIT, there are only, and top IITians, I know a lot of people who say ABC ke alawa kahin jana nahi hai, but I'm not that hardcore. I'll say there are roughly 10 colleges. So it's ABC, FMS, Lucknow, Kozhikode, Indore. Then there's XLRI. And I'm not this is not ranking. I'm just giving you the names without any order. ऐसे करके. So Blackie हो गया, तो ABC, KLI, then there's FMS, then there's XLRI, then there's SPJMR Mumbai, and then you have NITI, which is now IIM Mumbai. So these 10 colleges are like, if you're going to one of these colleges, you're mostly sorted in terms of compensation. You should be able to get a good ROI out of it. And not just ROI, it's also about your future career growth and your compensation growth. So if you graduated from these 10 colleges, it is mostly sorted, right? Iske niche jaane mein the level of risk increases, right? Your career ka growth chart becomes longer. It will take you a little longer because you'll be starting at a slightly junior position. So that starts happening the moment you go down the list.
Okay, so the first thing that we should keep in mind is we should always target a tier 1 college in terms of our MBA rankings, right? To ensure like a good placement.
MBA rankings are misleading. Most of them are, at least, like they're either unreliable due to, some companies have, I don't know, like MBA rankings to up down hote rehte hai.
Okay, yeah, of course.
But these 10 colleges are safe colleges, right? Iske alawa mein then it's up and down. So, I'm not saying somebody from, say, a symbiosis can't get a good package, right? But on paper, jo placement report hota hai, it can be very, very misleading because these are average CTCs. So, for example, there's a company called, I won't name the company, uski बेइज्जती नहीं करते हैं, but they have a CTC of 60 lakhs, right? So, उनके तो अच्छा लग रहा है. The in-hand component of that is 17 lakhs. तो चलो ठीक है, वेरिएबल भी हो सकता है, वेरिएबल नहीं है. They've put medical insurance in the CTCR. So it depends on the company. There's a lot of, but on the placement report, it's going to go as 60. So then spikes the placement. So there's a lot of, I mean, I have never been a fan of Placecom reports and never been a fan of Placecom either. But that's the thing. Reports are greatly inflated. And this is not just, I'm not just talking about tier 2, tier 3 colleges, also in tier 1 colleges. So if, okay, I'll give you my college example. The average placement report for us is 36 CTC, 36
Mm-hmm.
something, I think, for my batch.
Yeah.
Does that mean that every average IIM Calcutta student was getting 36? No, ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है. And 36 maybe 36 CTC है, right? So the base salary, the average salary, if you look at it from a very realistic perspective, is somewhere in the realm of 1.2 to 1.3 lakhs post taxes per month.
Mm-hmm.
That is what you get after a tier 1 MBA. No matter, unless you're going to like finance. Finance
Mm-hmm.
में तो है ज़्यादा. Finance average is very high, but I'm talking about the average of the college as a whole. So that's the difference. So, but if you have a tier 1 college in your CV already, like if you have a top DU or a top IIT, then these top 10 should be your goal, because वरना ज़्यादा gain नहीं है. See, if you have a very tier 3 college in your UG, then going to a tier 2 MBA college still makes sense, because it's still going to be a massive upgrade from where you were. But if you've already attended a top college in your UG, then downgrading from there is only going to decrease your market potential. So why do that?
Makes sense. Makes absolute sense. Okay, so the next question is, let's say for any average person, or maybe any student from any XYZ college, right? They're able to get into a good MBA college, right? But let's say it is not falling into the best of the best, right? The tier 1 MBA colleges. So how should they navigate through their 2 years in order to ensure that they can get the maximum out of their particular MBA institute? What should be the strategy? Should they focus on academics? Should they focus on extracurricular? Should they maximize the number of internships that they're doing while in the 2 years? What is
Okay,
your
so
take?
like if you're not from a tier 1, you're saying. See, it's not
Like
about. Okay,
the
go
way
ahead.
the reality. No, I'm just elaborating on my question. The way reality
Mhm.
works is that not everybody will get into all of these amazing colleges, right? Most of us
Yeah.
are definitely going to end up in tier 2 colleges and maybe tier 3 MBA colleges as well. They're going to do and what the next steps are going to be. So for a lot of the
Mhm.
people who are going to end up with a tier 2 or tier 3 colleges, how should their approach be to ensure that they can get the maximum out of the entire 2 years that they're going to be studying?
Right. So again, depends on which sector you're targeting. So ACADS should be a priority. If it's fin or consult, you need to have good marks. Even if you want to end up in those sectors, मान लो कि you're not getting top consulting companies in your college for placement, or top finance companies, you have to keep your academics on point. For finance people, I'll be honest, in IIM Calcutta or even like any ABC or even any tier 1 college, finance ka the competition is really hard, because they look out for people who have like at least CFA L2, L3. Mm, so these are people who are veterans, and like not veterans in terms of experience, but they have a lot of knowledge. So competing against them is hard. So trying to keep up your and this may not be the case in tier 2 colleges, where everybody around you is super knowledgeable. Everybody has a CFA or a FRM or some certificate, or they have work from a top company. So trying to create a difference there would be in terms of knowledge. यहाँ पर in tier 1 colleges, the difference is created based on CV points. So if you have a knowledge difference there, because CV is roughly going to be the same for most tier 2, tier 3 students. Again, very big generalization. ऐसा जरूरी नहीं कि होगा, but you have to create a difference in terms of knowledge level. So if you can do that, focus on getting as much knowledge as you can, and expanding your network either through LinkedIn or through offline means, because at the end of the day, one referral is all it takes to get to the company you want to be in, right? Which is why I mean, MBA में जो academics है, whether it's tier 1, whether it's tier 2, tier 3, you're not going to learn a lot, right? Academically speaking, it's not going to be very useful, at least for your job. It's not like if just because I've done accounting and MBA is a very compact course. It's very, very tightly packed. So are you a BCom student?
I'm particularly not. I have
Yes, sir.
economics plus maths, but Abhi is.
Okay, ठीक
Yeah.
है. तो अब accounts जैसा subject जो है, how many courses do you have for it? How many courses? How much time does it take for you to
Lot
get
of
good at it?
like 4 to 5 years, like for CA, CS.
Hmm.
There are a lot of
नहीं,
ACCA.
but जो college में जो पढ़ाते
There's
हैं, जो college में पढ़ाते हैं, कितना पढ़ाते हैं?
okay, like in terms of what, like
Classes, like 1 term, 2 terms, how
classes.
many?
around 20 to 25 is enough.
Okay. So 2025 classes. We have a 1.5 hour sessions, right? And they take very large topics and they condense those into 20 sessions. But they're taking up for someone who does not know accounts or for someone who does not know statistics. 20 सेशंस में वो एक एक घंटे में आके उसमें इतना कुछ हो रहा है तुम्हारे साथ एकेडमिक्स के अलावा भी. सो हैविंग ऑल ऑफ दैट प्रेशर ऑन योर हेड व्हाइल डीलिंग विद एकेडमिक्स, योर टेक अवे इज नॉट अ लॉट, राइट? यू डोंट लर्न बहुत ज्यादा, बट if you focus you can learn, right? It's about your focus. So if you focus you can learn, but that does not mean you're going to get a job in that sector. It all depends on your CV. So just because, okay, I have a bachelor's in pol science, लेट्स अज्यूम कि भाई मैंने वहां जाके सारे फिन के कोर्सेज ले लिए, सारा फाइनेंस दुनिया भर का पढ़ लिया, मुझसे अच्छा फाइनेंस में कोई नहीं है. It does not reflect on my CV, so I'm not even gonna get a shortlist. So I won't have the chance to showcase that knowledge. So it's all about your CV. In at least in the tier 1 college, it's all about that. So knowledge ही दिखाने का time नहीं मिलेगा आपको, which is why academics, if you need good marks, so scoring well is the goal for fin and consult. And for tier 2 colleges का यही है कि knowledge and build your network. Build your network as well as you can. I'm sure everyone has friends in the top colleges. So building a network is very easy. It's not a very hard thing to do. It's just a time taking venture. कि या तो LinkedIn पे मेहनत करो, connect to people, talk to people, or offline if you can. Because referrals are, I mean, the biggest gain out of any tier 1 MBA colleges that you have a huge network. And even if you don't go to a top company, one of your friends would have gone to a top company. So 1-2 years down the line, when you have relevant work experience, you can always get a referral from them. So that is the main gain. There's only 2 gains out of a tier 1 college. The first is ki, your starting point is going to be a little ahead as compared to tier 2, tier 3 colleges. And the second gain is the network.
Okay, I think that was a really amazing answer, because a lot of the major concern between students would be that मेरे academics अच्छे नहीं है, या फिर मेरी profile अच्छी नहीं है, या फिर I cannot crack the relevant interviews to get into the tier 1 colleges, because as you mentioned the competition is very high. So I think this answer will definitely help the folks who are going to end up in tier 2 colleges. Maybe because of their hard work, or maybe because of the way their life trajectory has worked upon. Okay, so this question is from the third year students in our college, right? So the question is, uh, how do we present ourselves in interviews for corporates, right? I think this can be in a sort of a generalized way. What are the interviewers looking to listen from you? How do we picture our achievements, and how do we picture our CV pointers in front of the interviewers to make it sound in terms of the maximum impact possible?
Right. So for any interview, so वैसे तो sector specific, job specific, your prep has to be there. So technical prep is a separate thing. Apart from that, presenting your CV and you as a person, the main goal for you should be to have a story ready. Now, when I say story, your CV is also a story, right? The points can't be very, very disconnected. And even if they are, you have to bridge the gaps. Now, let's say you're a BA English student, but तुमने CFA किया. हालांकि I'm just giving an example, ऐसा नहीं देखने को मिलेगा. But let's say कि BA English वाले ने CFA किया हुआ, you have to bridge those gaps. So whatever your journey has been like, you need to know that story in and out for MBA admissions and for corporate interviews. So once you have that down, where you can connect each CV point is a connection. It's a blip, like it's a journey, right? So that's what you have to showcase. Up how you do that is totally up to you. So for me, it was very easy because मेरे लिए था कि अच्छा ठीक है, I had a sports career, then I chose MBA. So why did I choose MBA? That's obviously going to be a big factor. Like it's a big answer for me. So BA Pol Science के बाद why MBA? So whichever answers are like the big answers for you, you have to have a script for it ready. अब तुम script ready करो, तुम लिख के करो, पढ़ के करो, mirror के सामने practice करो. That's up to you. Do mock interviews. Mock interviews is actually the best, especially if it is, especially if you manage to arrange. I mean, this you can ask your place com, or if you are responsible for it. If you have mock GDs and mock interviews that are conducted by people who have gone through this journey before, so that should do the trick. Mock interviews is the way to go. And as for by presenting ka, you need to have your story ready. A and B. See, you can't have इस type का situation कि तुम्हारे CV पे कुछ लिखा और तुम्हें पता नहीं उसके बारे में, because that's a huge risk. Even if it's just one point, you need to know things in and out. And CV पे everybody exaggerates थोड़ा बहुत, 100 का 200 footfall दिखा दिया, ये वो कर दिया. तो that most people do that kind of thing कि यहाँ से approval मिल गया, इसने approve कर दिया, manager से email करवा दिया. तो if you have done that, your story still needs to be accurate. It can't show. तो इसलिए वैसे तो my suggestion is don't exaggerate. But if you are exaggerating, तो इतना मत कर दो कि भाई तुम गए कंपनी बदल गई, इतना नहीं होना चाहिए. So whatever your exaggerations are numerically ही है तो छोटा मोटा है तो ठीक है I guess, but apart from, and this is unethical advice वैसे, but कम करो, ना करो तो बेस्ट है, but करो तो कम करो, and make sure that the story binds together. And for that, mock interviews is the way to go.
Okay, I think we can do some sort of initiative like this where we connect the previous pass out students with the current batch, and so
Yeah.
conduct some sort of mock interviews. I think that is something that we
Mock
can definitely
interviews.
do. Okay, so with that, I think we are done with all the formal questions, and I think we
Before
move on.
that, I have one more question.
Okay.
Yes. So like we have gone through your LinkedIn. So sir, what is like how's your journey of content creation along with your fitness and everything, like you like we want to know your journey of content creation on LinkedIn.
So I started when I think एक साल होने जा रहा है, like it's been I think 10-11 months, that's when I started. So I obviously had a boost because LinkedIn is a platform that promotes tags, right? So even if मतलब uh, how do I put it in a good way, इसको cut out कर देना, मतलब अगर तो भी अगर मेरे सीवी में अगर मेरे लिंक्डइन पे आया अहमदाबाद लिखा हुआ है ना, तो वो आएंगे लोग, उसमें कनेक्ट करेंगे, जबरदस्ती वो करेंगे. सो आई हैड दैट एडवांटेज कि सिंस आई हैड कैलकाटा व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड माय लिंक्डइन का कंटेंट राइटिंग, तो जितना डिजर्व नहीं करता था उससे ज्यादा भाव मिलता था पोस्ट पे. सो दैट वाज देयर. सो व्हाटएवर टैग्स यू हैव, again even if you don't have tags, then the quality of your content matters. Agar tags nahi, then quality has to be high. So for my approach for writing content on LinkedIn was, what kind of a post would have helped me 2 years ago? That was my general approach. कि किस टाइप के डाउट्स मुझे आए थे, I try to make a list of those doubts and कि what are the answers to those doubts. So that was my initial approach. Then बीच-बीच में of course then I started having fun with it कि हाँ प्लेसकॉम की बेइज्जती कर रहे हैं, टॉप मिड वालों की बेइज्जती कर रहे हैं. So I mixed it up थोड़ा बहुत, but that's what my approach was, trying to solve problems that I faced, or if I didn't personally face it, at least problems that my friends have faced in their MBA journey. So my content is mostly very MBA specific, and then corporate specific. So occasionally I talk about fitness on LinkedIn, but then my Instagram is fully fitness, so I sort of keep it separate. But on LinkedIn, again, corporate is a space where there's a lot of people, even within Air India or within my company, other people who are working, my friends, who want to get into it, but they feel like it's a very big task. कि fitness में तो बहुत time लग जाएगा, ऐसा खाना पड़ेगा, ये करना पड़ेगा, वो करना पड़ेगा. Which is not really the case. Even if you're able to take out an hour a day, and if you're able to regulate your diet somewhat, कि हाँ भाई, don't go for that extra samosa कचौड़ी. उतना भी अगर तुम अपना कर लो, you can change the way you look, the way you feel. You can change a lot. तो इसलिए that's one small part of my content where I try to push people to at least try going to a gym, at least try getting into a sport. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be the gym, it can be a sport also, but trying to take out time for physical activities is, I think, necessary for, I mean, for me, it is necessary for keeping my sanity. ऐसे मैं बोर हो जाऊंगा, वरना ऐसे कौन जाओ काम करो घिसो वापस आओ. So you have to have some fun in your life. If it's through a sport, great. If it's through partying, also great. Do that, but then make sure you have some time left for your health. So that's been my approach for content regarding fitness.